All right, Scott. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. So can you tell me how it is that you got involved in the space industry and how you ended up working for Lockheed Martin?
Sure. It goes back to moving to Colorado in 1985 from Ohio State. I think I spent about the $400 I had to go skiing. And then when I ran out of that, I had to find a job. Found a job at Martin Marietta, which was very exciting. I think the first program I worked on was a human spaceflight program. It was the manned maneuvering unit, the backpack they flew out of the shuttle. A young mechanisms engineer, that's kind of a cool thing to do, working with the astronauts. So an interesting time. So as a young engineer working on the MMU program with Bruce McCandless, Kathy Sullivan, that were flying at the time, pre-Challenger, redoing some of the arm mechanisms in the vehicle. Very cool stuff. Challenger happened and they shut that program down. And I migrated into doing mechanical design work for Titan II, Titan III, Commercial Titan, Titan IV projects, converting a Titan II ICBM into an orbital vehicle. Then going into the commercial side, they ventured the Titan IV designed for Commercial Titan. So that's where we dipped our toe into the commercial world. And that was exciting, doing structural and mechanical design on that vehicle. And eventually migrated into an advanced programs group that looked at new configurations that had more performance to orbit. As we saw this evolution to what we now call EELV and Atlas and Delta, adding solids on, better engines, getting more performance to orbit. Through advanced programs, I then migrated into business development, seeing the technical side and the market side and how can we bring the two together. So that's kind of my history from Martin Marietta to the Lockheed Martin and where we are today.
So what programs are you working on now?
Really focusing on the Orion spacecraft program and making sure that's a priority within NASA, and I think it is. Lori Garver recently said the SLS and Orion are the #1 priority in exploration. The beauty of the commercial activity is that the intent is to really free up funding for NASA to do exploration. So this model is a great exercise. There's a good community at this conference working that. We're supportive, and if Lockheed can help them with lessons learned, technologies, intellectual property, better ways of doing business, we're happy to help.
Now, with the Orion, obviously there was a lot of work done during the Constellation program, and during the whole limbo between that and moving forward with SLS and Orion, was any sort of progress lost? I mean, obviously there was kind of a hold on things for a while, but was there any setbacks that would cause the development to last any longer than projected?
Well, there were I won't call them setbacks, I'll call them deferrals, reprioritization of what we needed to do by a certain test. So we don't have to necessarily do it all real quick. In the change of administrations and the change of priorities, for example, they took the space station emission requirements and said, don't worry about those for Orion, the commercial folks can take care of that. So they deferred that work. We still have to have the capability to do that mission, but the work is deferred until we're called upon to do that mission. For example, we're not pursuing putting in a docking adapter on the front end of it because we don't have to dock to the space station. Now, if we had to, we could bring that work back to the left very easily. We know what has to be done. It's just whether we do it or not. So we've been able to fit within the funding profile that they've rebalanced to support commercial and exploration and SLS for the things that need to be done by the time they need to be done. So for example, we're doing our EFT Exploration Flight Test 1 in 2014. That's going to be only the things we need to do, the top 10 of 16 risk reductions on a Delta IV flight for high-speed reentry to validate the parachute system coming in at eventually 11 kilometers a second, heat shield performance, landing and recovery loads and instrumentation. So a lot of really good risk reduction going on, but it won't have all the equipment on a full-up crewed vehicle because we don't need it. So we're taking those kind of affordability initiatives. As we go into the next test flight, We'll do a high altitude abort test before we fly crew. You probably saw a video of the pad abort that was done out at White Sands. So this is a high altitude abort to make sure that during ascent, all the maximum loads phases we can abort if needed.
And will that be done with another Delta, or that would be with SLS?
That will actually be done on I believe it's a Peacekeeper asset. So flown out of the commercial launch pad in Florida, LC-46. And so it's just a small booster, but it's enough to get the Delta V we need to go the speeds we need and the altitude we need to then do that abort maneuver and make sure that everything works fine. That actually may be preceded by Exploration Mission 1, which would be an uncrewed mission that would be on an SLS in 2017. That might do a lunar flyby. It might go to an Earth-Moon Lagrange point, but it'll be like a lunar mission. It won't be going to the space station. In the event the SLS isn't available, I think we could continue thinking about using other launch vehicles and maybe even considering international collaboration with launch to do test flights. But these are just test flights. We're very pro having SLS online as soon as possible because we really need that rocket to do these deep space missions.